Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel where we review anything and everything. And today we're getting into another Beyblade unboxing. Link's gonna be in the description below for you guys to purchase this on Amazon. Now, I recently did an unboxing of two different starter packs for Beyblade and a stadium set. Now, the generic stadium, the basic affordable or cheap stadium, however you want to phrase it. Now, this right here, I'm not sure what this pack is considered or what it's called. I guess a booster pack, because even though it's a double pack, it's not considered a starter pack simply because, as you see, it says here, requires launchers, where the other ones came with launchers, and you saw that in the unboxing video of that. So I was kind of wondering why on Amazon and most other retailers, you'll see the basic single pack that I bought. It was of Cintio? Am I pronouncing that right? Let me, I have that box on hand. Scythe Incendio, and this one, which came with the launcher, this retailed for $10, $9.99. And this one right here, and you see it shows what's included at the top. And this one right here that I just purchased here is $15, $14.99. So at that price, I was thinking to myself, well, it's a better value. You're saving overall $5 from buying two individual sets. And that is true if you have a substantial amount of, or a decent amount of launchers. The reason why I say a decent amount is because, say, if you purchase a few and no one else has, for example, I purchased this to play with my kids. The only launchers that are going to be had are the ones that I purchased. It's not like I have a collection of these and then somebody else has a collection of their own with their own launchers or anything of the sort. So that is the reason why I say, if you are, just be mindful of that. If you're purchasing and you've got, you're playing with your kids, make sure you got some additional, don't mind that beep sound. That is my air fryer. Make sure you have a couple additional launchers. And obviously, if you're playing against other people, it's not going to matter, because if you have like the amount right now, I have two launchers, the regular I think they're called ripcord launchers, and then the string one. And that would be fine. But playing with additional people with just your own set, that becomes kind of an area where, you want to make sure you have enough so that you and your kids can play and everyone's comfortable with the launcher they have. And so before we get into the unboxing of this, I just want to say, go back to the video that I made if you are new to Beyblade and want a little bit of a rundown on how Beyblade works, the incarnation of this version, where the mindset is of this one, which is to be global, as opposed to the previous ones were a little bit divided based on the brand and what regions that they were in. So take a look at that video to get a little sense of that, a little brief kind of catch up. I'm not an expert, but just kind of gives you a basic laydown of everything. Now, this right here shows you the stats and the parts. This is a balance type overall, and this is a stamina type overall. But what's interesting is that Sword Dran, this is a alternate version. It's the blade piece is still the same, just different colorway, but the ratchet normally uses that ratchet in its original version, which the original colorway was blue. It uses a 360 ratchet. What that means is 3 is the number of edges it has, and 60 is the height. So you can see here, there's an 80. So I'm going to assume that that little dash in between would be 70. And then the dash below 60 would be 50. So it gives you a range of the height, and those heights give a different level of stats that go along with it. They have different colorways of this because the original Sword Dran had a different colorway of that same piece, but you're still getting the same benefit of that. So the only thing that's missing from you swapping this to make this the original Sword Dran in terms of its setup is, I believe, the type down here. I'm not sure which one it was, but it was something different, maybe F or something like that. And this is B. This one's more geared for stamina, which shows you there. This tip right here is geared for balance. this type head here, the blade is geared for stamina. So what's interesting is having this double pack here, you could do a lot of mixing and matching if you wanted to, where you could take this base right here, I'm sorry, this bit, let me call them by the proper names, the bit, mix it with that blade of Gale Wyvern, and which one's better for stamina? This one here, this ratchet, and then you'd have like a full-on stamina type of bay. And this one right here, the blade, along with this, is a little more balanced, but it has a little bit more attack into it, would match up well with that, along with that, forming this into a more attack. So both of these are somewhat balanced with each other. And if you swap them out, this becomes extra stamina base and this one becomes extra attack base. So it's just, you know, a little food for thought as far as playing around with things. But let's get into that. We did enough talking. Let's get into this unboxing. And I hope that it's not too hard to unbox. I know that the other ones had a pull tab once I got into it, where you pull the blade off of like the white cardboard, and hopefully that is the case still, because otherwise I know I would have trouble getting it off. Let me adjust this camera angle a little bit so you guys can see it a little better. Now, I don't plan on buying a whole lot of these. I just wanted a little something that I have variety. I have one more coming in the mail, and I will unbox that one when it comes. But just to have a little bit of variety, so that when I play with my sons, we have the option of picking different ones, and we can say which ones are our favorite and whatnot. From my understanding, a little bit of research I did, that this, the Sword Dran, not only is it the original one was the first blade that came out, but it's also like one of the star characters, Beyblades inside the series. Even though it is an attack-based blade and geared for aggressive attack, this alternate version kind of goes at a different angle with it, where it tries to incorporate a little bit more stamina. So it has the blade, which is, once again, the top piece is more attack based, and the lower parts are a little more stamina based, making it a little bit more balanced, even though it's still considered, well, that actually turns it into, at least based on the box. Let me just bring that back into frame. Sorry about that for hitting the camera. Makes it a stamina blade, the stamina Beyblade overall, which is interesting because even though that the bit is stamina based, and even though the ratchet is a little bit more stamina based, I'm surprised that that wouldn't make it more of a balanced blade. But that is what balanced Beyblade, but that's what is considered. Don't mind that sometimes I'll use the term blade to describe the entire thing, even though the blade is really just the top piece. There we go. And it's definitely different. I like the look of it because the gray goes well with the metal, but it's definitely different than the, like I said, the original base version, which is blue and is a bit more in the attack range. But you can get a partially there with the fact that this ratchet, though it's not the same colorway as the original one that goes with the original blue color, this is the same ratchet piece. So for the most part, in this set, you come with 2/3 of what's needed to make it its original design. The only thing that you're missing is the bit, which, you know, maybe you don't have that particular, sorry about that. That was for my food cooking in the air fryer. So even if you don't specifically have that particular bit, like I just mentioned, you do have alternative bits that will apply a bit more attack, maybe not to the equal of what the other one is. If I'm not mistaken, the bit that came with the original one, I think it's F. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it had a 40 attack, And a few of the other stats like defense and stamina were a lot less. Like I think it was a 5 for defense, 5 for stamina, and the dash was somewhat comparable to this maybe, but it had a lot less in the in-between stats, but only 5 more in the attack. So for the most part, this could replicate, giving you somewhat of a similar attack, making this almost as aggressive as the original version with, let me see. I think the dash properties on the other one was higher also than this one, than this T bit. But nonetheless, you get my point. You're getting a bit of that attack prowess in it. So it's not that bad of a combination if you're going to go that way. And what's funny, though, is that because of those things, they label that as a... Let me make sure that this is correct as far as the way that I'm connecting that in. There we go. Well, let me finish my thought. What I was about to say with that first is that it's actually interesting because this one here being a stamina blade and this one being attack blade, you would think that they were opposite, but it's very funny because they consider this one a stamina. So I guess stamina really has a lot more to do with your bit than it does with your blade, even though the blade is going to kind of distinguish how the weight balance is at the top, which also affects spinning. So it's interesting that the overall, this is considered stamina bay and Beyblade. We'll just call them a bay as for the total. This is considered a stamina bay, and that's considered a balance bay, even though this is blade is a stamina based and this is attack based. So I guess these parts make up more of a range than what we would think, because I would think these parts with an attack makes them somewhat balanced, but I guess the weak point is that there's no defense in this setup, and that's probably the reason why it's not considered balanced. So it's probably more attack / stamina, where a true balance would be considered stamina, attack, and defense, which this one has decent defense at a 40. The attack is low here, but the attack is high on the bit to make up for it. And this right here has a bit more attack in its ratchet as well, upping the attack value a bit more to equal. We add up the actual points. I think they come close to this, not exactly, but 45, not 55, but nonetheless, I'm not adding the 15 on this, so it's not as high, but it gets you in that balanced range, which is the point of it. So I guess that's why it'd be considered more balanced, because this really has hardly any defense, and its stats, well, no, I won't say hardly, because this is not too bad, but it's still not great overall. Versus I think something that has to be considered balanced probably needs is stamina, defense, and attack to all be somewhere in like maybe the 45-ish range total, to probably 45 to 50-ish range to be probably considered balanced, and that's probably why. So sorry for dragging things out so long. This is supposed to be just a quick review. I think this is not a bad pack at all, but like I said, you can't start with this. You need to have a starter set that actually has the launchers. And if you are playing with, like, say, family, and you're not buying just for yourself to compete with other people who already have their own setup, then you're going to need at least 2 starters, so that way you have 2 launchers, and then you can obviously utilize both of these competitively against your family members, that you at least have 2 launchers. Right now, currently, I only have the regular string. I have the string launcher, and I think I forget what they call the other one once again, but your standard launcher, we'll say, for lack of a better word, or ratchet launcher, or whatever you want to call it. I have just that. So when I play with my sons, I'm just going to make it where whatever one they want to use is the one that, I'll let them use, and I'll use the other one and be at the, I don't want to call it disadvantage, but be less comfortable if we both, our comfort was the same one. But I do want to definitely have at least another regular normal ratchet type launcher, just so that way it could just be equal if need be. But anyway, you guys, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.